Senator Flake, you've announced that you're not running for re-election, and I wonder, could you have done this if you were running for re-election?
No, not a chance.
Not a chance.
No.
An inconvenient truth. Jeff Flake providing an honest assessment of the political realities surrounding the Kavanaugh ordeal. And as the FBI conducts its search for answers, the rest of us are left to examine the profound effects the situation may have on the midterm elections now just 5 weeks away. It's certainly an important topic. Pew asked registered voters last week before the hearing what issues were very important to how they plan to vote, and the Supreme Court ranked first ahead of health care or the economy. And here we are at the million-dollar question. How will House and Senate races shake out? Here's the Washington Post's answer. Quote, the issue is resonating in two distinct ways. It threatens to further erode support for House Republicans struggling to survive in centrist suburban districts, while in Senate races, it's giving GOP challengers in pro-Trump states a chance to inspire previously unenthusiastic conservatives. In other words, standing by Kavanaugh might have Republicans waving the white flag in the House, but it could actually help them in the Senate. So how's the president feeling about GOP chances in November?
But I think we're going to do well.
Joining us now, Betsy Woodruff, politics reporter for the Daily Beast. Betsy thinks they're going to do well. What do you think? What are you hearing? How do other people feel?
There is scant evidence that the Kavanaugh debacle has done anything positive for Republicans going into the midterm elections. One piece of information that's interesting that we received recently is a new poll from CBS, which shows that roughly half of Democratic voters say they will be angry if Kavanaugh gets confirmed. And at the same time, roughly half of Republican voters say they also will be angry if Kavanaugh doesn't get confirmed. This entire process has only heightened the long existing rancor and anger that exists in this country. So the big question is, what does that mean when it comes to nuts and bolts and numbers going into the midterms? The answer is, of course, we can't be sure. If looking back at 2016, pollsters continuously underestimated the intensity that Republican voters had. At the same time, Democrats have shown over the last year that Democratic voters are extraordinarily mobilized. That's important because historically in midterm elections, Republicans just turn out in larger numbers. If Democrats are able to shift the balance there, it could absolutely be a game changer.
Tim, this is not scientific. This is not based on anything I've read or seen, but just my experience on campaigns. Republicans who are likely to be highly motivated, as Betsy says, by Kavanaugh's treatment or fired up by his testimony, as we've discussed, are already voting in the midterms. That is who votes in the midterms. Right. The very person who pays attention to and cares about the Kavanaugh nomination process. On the other hand, for Democrats, it may be young women who can't believe that someone like Professor Ford can offer credible testimony and not have that be dispositive. It may be people who are not regular voters in midterms. They come out and vote in president. It seems to me that the upside for Republicans is it brings out the people that they need to turn out, but they're already habitual midterm voters. But for the Democrats, it seems like more of an X factor. They may not be regular voters in off presidential years.
And where that will matter, I think, to Democrats is in the Senate. By all indications, the Democrats already look to be in the driver's seat in the House. And I think to the extent that Kavanaugh is irrelevant or not a factor in the House, but he is in the Senate, that's where this battle is being waged. And I think that's why you see Mitch McConnell still going all in behind Kavanaugh. If Kavanaugh is appealing to Republicans who are going to vote in Senate races, the Republicans can't afford to lose this Senate for a number of obvious reasons. But I think the other X factor is whether or not Democratic voters are going to come out in unforeseen numbers in these same Senate races because of Kavanaugh. And I think particularly women. I think the Republicans are in danger of having a generational shift here among female voters. Not only because of Kavanaugh, but because of Trump. Yeah. I think, those two men are really wedded to the hip right now for female voters.
You made that point earlier that this is running for the Senate, not something you're supposed to run for. You're supposed to simply be presented to the Senate. You talk about Kavanaugh running like Trump ran for president.
Well, I mean, and that was one of the most interesting things last week was watching the Republican Party, which we've talked about a lot, enabling Donald Trump, following Donald Trump, acquiescing to Donald Trump. Last week, we saw a Republican Party that was becoming Donald Trump, that you have a judicial candidate who basically is channeling Trumpism, and then you see what, has happened to a Lindsey Graham out there. But in terms of the effect of this, there's a narrative that you see on social media a lot which is that Republicans are really being fired up and unified in support of Brett Kavanaugh. The question that you raised, I think, is the key one. Are they regular voters? I have a kind of a gut sense that whoever loses this fight is going to be the most charged up. They're going to feel the most motivated. There will be so much anger on the other side that there'll be a slight tipping effect.
Don, I want to read you something in the New York Times today from Rebecca Traister. She writes, "Fury is a political weapon and women need to wield it. This political moment has provoked a period in which more and more women have been in no mood to dress their fury up as anything other than raw and burning rage. Many women are yelling, shouting, using Sharpies to etch sharply worded slogans onto protest signs, making furious phone calls to representatives." Is that your impression?
Well, I mean, it's not just that. I mean, you saw that, for example, of the two women who confronted Jeff Flake in the elevator on Thursday. I mean, there is a fury out there. And what I look at are the numbers, for example, that show that 71% of women oppose the Kavanaugh nomination. I mean, this is astounding. And even among men, that opposition number is somewhere around 59%. And for the first time, I'm really seeing Democrats talk about the Supreme Court as a motivating factor, which we haven't done in a very long time. And so I think it adds to the motivation that was already there. And I expect to see huge voter turnout. There have already been increases in voter registration, and there will be huge voter turnout that I think is going to turn the tables for Democrats, certainly in the House. But I think there is that opportunity in the Senate, too, when you look at what's the polling in some of these key states.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.